if you want to get very accurate predictions, and here I'm talking about the Navamsa tulya Rasi chart, not the Rasi tulya Navamsa chart. I'm talking about the opposite, which is using the Navamsa Ascendant in your Lagna chart, in your Divan chart to get very accurate results.
Please like my videos, please subscribe to my channel, and please press the bell icon so that you get to know when my latest video has come. And to learn more and to find a video relevant to you, please do check out my videos list.
Hello, namaskar and adab to all my friends from your friend Astrologer and Sydirfan. Once more with you from your very own channel, Astro Assurance. When we look at predictions in the life, when we look at the final disseminations, we look at the Navamsa chart, the D9 chart. However, how should you actually utilize the Navamsa chart? Now, there are a number of videos on this platform which talks about the Rasi Tulya Navamsa chart, which means you look at the Navamsa placements of planets in different signs and you just plot them into the Lagna chart in the D1 chart. I know of a different technique and I've also talked about it earlier as well. So I'm going to talk about it with an example. Because a number of people who have reached out to me have asked for clarifications, and even when they're consulting me and when I talk about the Navamsa Tulya Rasi chart, they get a little confused. They say, oh, is it the Rasi Tulya Navamsa chart? I say, no, this is a slightly different technique which I'm using, which is the Navamsa chart, using the ascendant of the Navamsa chart and plotting the planets of the Rasi chart, the D1 chart on it, and then to look at the results, keeping everything else the same. So let's jump in and see how, with an example, with an actual example, how the Navamsa chart, Navamsa Ascendant, used with the same placement of the D1 chart, the Lagna chart, planets placed in the same signs will give us very accurate results. Now, this is the chart of a lady who was born on the 20th of October, 1978 at 5 a.m. in the morning in Mumbai. So, based on her birth date and time and location, this is her ascendant which has been derived. She is of the Virgo ascendant. Then the ruler of Virgo, Mercury, is in the second house, conjunct with Venus and Sun, and you can see here Venus is retrograde. Mars is in the third house, Ketu is in the seventh, Jupiter is exalted in the 11th house, and Saturn and Moon are in a Vish dosha in the 12th house. So this is an important placement which we will look at in detail later. If you see, her Navamsa chart has the Gemini Lagna, which has the same ruler as her Lagna chart, the D1 chart. And Mercury now goes into her Lagna, into the first house, along with Venus. Now, her Moon and Saturn both are in the nakshatra Purva Falguni, which is ruled by Venus itself. And Venus is retrograde, but it has gone in the Lagna chart, in the Lagna, in the ascendant, in the Navamsa. So this is an important dissemination. Keep this in mind. So when you look at her Navamsa chart, you can see that her 7th lord is Jupiter and placed in the 6th house along with Moon, where Moon is in debilitation, and under the 3rd aspect of Saturn as well as the 5th aspect of Ketu. Now, she was born in 1978, but she was married the moment she reached her 18th year, which was that she was in a Moon and Venus dasha when she was married, and Venus is retrograde, as you see in her chart, and Venus is also birth nakshatra lord, and Venus is also the 12th lord in her Navamsa chart. So by the time she reached her Rahu dasha started in 2005. So first 6-7 years of her marriage were very good. She was married in the last stages of Moon and Venus. So Mars dasha was pretty okay, decent. But the moment she stepped into a Rahu dasha, that's when the problem started. And it so happened that she stepped into a Rahu dasha and she was expecting a second child when she got to know that her husband had developed the habit of gambling, and he was also a heavy drinker. So which shows that Jupiter placed in the 6th house of disease in Scorpio sign under the 3rd aspect of Saturn, and her Venus being retrograde, and her Mars in a Navamsa chart both debilitated, and it is also giving her a Manglik position being in the 2nd house and under the 5th aspect of Ketu. So you know what happened later on. So in her Rahu dasha, by the time she reached Rahu and Saturn dasha, the trouble started so much in her life. She was in Rahu and Saturn that she got separated from her husband. she delivered a second child while being separated from her husband. However, she soon got to know that her husband was suffering from a severe disease. And for the first couple of years, they didn't know what disease it was. They thought it was because of drinking. So they did all sorts of tests. So the first 3-4 years, he didn't get the right treatment, right diagnosis also. So however, she was in another city. So she went to the other city. I think her husband was in Goa, where he developed the habit of drinking and gambling. She brought him over to Mumbai and she took care of him. There was a time when she was taking care of her mother as well as her husband. They were in the same house with her while she was having 2 children and she was working. She was an independent lady. And by the time she reached her Rahu and Venus Dasha, which was in end of 2019, she lost her husband. This was just at the start, just before COVID hit. So Rahu Venus, she lost her husband. So this you can see clearly points out from her Navamsa chart in her Rahu Dasha. So she suffered a loss of her husband because the 7th Lord is in the 12th house itself in Scorpio sign under the 3rd aspect of Saturn and under the 5th aspect of Ketu, which is placed with Mars. And Mars is also in both in debilitation and she's also Manglik. So she lost her husband. However, after she reached her 36th year, and if you convert the ascendant of the Navamsa, why do you convert the ascendant of the Navamsa? If you see, what is the degree of her ascendant? The degree of her ascendant in Virgo is 17 degree in the Hasta Nakshatra. But the 17th degree in the Hasta Nakshatra coincides with the Gemini Navamsa. That's why Gemini becomes a Navamsa Lagna. So what you do is you convert her D1 chart, the Lagna chart, into a chart which is where the ascendant is Gemini. All the planetary placements are same, only the ascendant you change to Gemini. So let's use, this is a chart and with a placement. So you convert this Gemini sign, which is the 10th house in the D1 chart, into the Lagna using the Navamsa Lagna. So you show the chart from this house. Now you see the planetary placement change. Now this becomes a Vargotama Lagna because obviously you have used the ascendant of the Navamsa as the ascendant of the D1 chart, the Lagna chart. So now if you see, one thing is Rahu now is getting into the 4th house, and that is the reason why you can see why they were not able to diagnose the disease of the husband for few years. Why? The 4th house is a domestic life, and in the 6th sign of Virgo, where Rahu is placed, and both the Moon and Saturn are in the nakshatra Purva Falguni. Saturn is in Purva Falguni, Moon is in Purva Falguni, which is ruled by Venus, and Venus is a birth nakshatra lord, but it is retrograde. So her 3rd lord, so in the 3rd house she has Moon and Saturn, which is in a Vish dosha, and the 3rd lord is Sun, and that goes in the debilitation in the 5th house. And so she lost her husband very early in her marriage. Sun is debilitated. The Nij Bhang is not working. Here the Nij Bhang should work because Saturn is aspecting with the 3rd aspect. Sun in the sign where Saturn gets exalted. But because the degree difference between Saturn and Sun is more than 10 degrees, and the degree between Sun and Venus should also create a Nij Bhang. But Venus is 27 and Sun is 10, 17 degree difference, so the Nij Bhang doesn't work. And the debilitation of Sun kicks in. Now, why Sun is important here? His debilitation is important because Sun is in the nakshatra Swati, ruled by Rahu, and Rahu is in the 4th house of her domestic life. So that is important. And in her Navamsa, here you have converted the D1 chart into the Navamsa Lagna. But in a Navamsa, you can see Sun and Rahu are placed together in the 8th house, in a sign ruled by Saturn. Okay, so Saturn's presence here in the 8th house is important because Saturn is aspecting a Sun in the Lagna chart, which is converted into the ascendant of the Navamsa. So she lost her husband in a Rahu and Venus Dasha in 2019. In a Venus Dasha because Venus is also her birth nakshatra lord. And at that point of time, her Saturn was transiting over her 7th house in the converted Lagna chart, and from the Navamsa chart also, it was transiting over a 7th house, and 7th house is the house of marriage and union. So she lost her husband, especially because in her actual Navamsa chart, Jupiter is with moon in the 6th house of disease, 12th itself. So she lost her husband and the change happened. However, now she is in a Jupiter Dasha right now, and she stepped into a Jupiter Dasha, if you see, last year in June, and she will be in a Jupiter Dasha till next year, August. So she is in a good Dasha period of Jupiter, and in the change Navamsa, Jupiter rules the 7th house, is exalted in the 2nd house. Jupiter is also the Karaka of the 2nd house. Then Jupiter is aspecting her Mars, being protective of the Mars, while Mars is in its own sign in the 6th house, which means in the change in Navamsa, which gets activated post the 36th year, she is in good stead. Her 7th Lord Jupiter is placed very well. Jupiter is also her 10th Lord and is placed strong. The only challenge being, why will the change come during this period? Because right now, Ketu is transiting over her Virgo sign in transit over a 4th house. So Ketu is also a status quo changer. So right now she is the widow. She doesn't have a husband, but because Ketu is going over a 4th house, it has activated a change in the 4th house, and Rahu is going over the Pisces sign ruled by Jupiter and aspecting natal Jupiter. Rahu is aspecting natal Jupiter, while Rahu is placed in the 4th house in the change in Navamsa chart. That's why the placement is getting activated in the Jupiter Dasha with 7th rule, which also rules the 7th house. The Karaka of the 7th house, Rahu placed in the sign ruled by Jupiter and aspecting a natal Jupiter. Ketu going over a 4th house, activating a change in status quo, and Saturn is now transiting over her 9th house, the house of second marriage, over a Bhrigu Bhava. So what happened? Because Saturn rules the sign or house which is the Bhrigu Bhava, and because she served her husband in his sickness, took care of him till his death, while everybody in her family was against her bringing a husband because she was separated from her husband. They were contemplating getting a divorce from him, but when she got to know that husband is suffering from cancer, she went to Goa. She brought him from Goa, kept him in her house, treated him, took care of him, went to work. So because she served her husband, so she was able to give off a karmic debt towards husband. She was able to pay off the debt because she served her husband. So in a second innings, in a marriage, after 36th year kicked in, and when Jupiter Dasha is on and transits came into being, where Saturn is going over Bhrigu Bhava in the 9th house of second marriage, Jupiter is transiting over 12th house of bed pleasure, aspecting Mars in the transit, while also aspecting Mars through its natal placement. Rahu going over the sign of Pisces, aspecting natal Jupiter. Ketu changing the transit, in its transit, the status quo. So number of placements are getting activated, and she being a Jupiter Dasha, so the placements are giving her a chance of a second marriage. Now, she reached out to me for consultation, asking me whether she should get married because her family were not in favor of her getting married again, especially her brother. They thought she had already gone through a lot, so she should remain alone. But she thought no, she wanted to be with somebody, and she was alone, and she was missing partner in the life. She wanted to get married. So I told her to wait till at the end of October to get married. However, because of certain situations in her family, she wanted to get married within the next couple of months. So if she gets married within the couple of months in either October or November, I won't be surprised. So friend, this is the way you look at how you should utilize the ascendant of the Navamsa and place all the planets of the Devan chart of the Lagna chart in that ascendant in the respective signs, and then calculate and then see in that current dasha how the planetary placements are acting out, how the transits are acting out, and then use for accurate prediction. Yeah, I gave the example of a lady for a marriage, for a domestic life, There are many other questions also she asked about a property and other things also which I answered, but I didn't want to make this video too long. But you can look into a number of factors from your work perspective, from your marriage perspective, from investment perspective. When you convert the Lagna of the Navamsa into convert the D1 chart into the Lagna of the Navamsa and see results from there, predictions from there. So friend, like this video, share this video, and if you're looking for a personal consultation from me, please reach out to me at the link given below. Until some other time, some other video, this is your friend astrologer and guide. If I'm signing off.